What's up? So I think carbs are low-key a scam. My name is Keegan, and for the past 8 months, I've been on a ketogenic diet, which basically means that I've had zero carbohydrates, and I felt great. I've survived this long without carbohydrates, and I feel like freaking amazing without them. And so I'm starting to believe now that, like, honestly, they're low-key a scam. They're low-key like a psyop that's meant to keep us kind of weak, kind of fat. And so I just don't really believe in eating carbs anymore, to be honest. So my goal with this video is not to like scare you and to induct you into this like keto carnivore cult, because I don't really place myself as a part of that. I just want to place my skepticism. I just want to share with you my skepticism of carbohydrates, and just to have you, question what you're told by like by people saying like carbs are necessary, like you need carbs. I just want you to sort of question that, I guess, narrative, and to maybe experiment with yourself and to see, like, do you actually like carbs? Do you actually need carbohydrates in your diet? Or maybe you can get by with less. Do you feel better? Like, if you feel good on them, and you're achieving your goals with it and you're healthy, okay, cool, right? As long as you're not like eating a ton of like ultra processed nonsense, you're probably in like the top 5% of people anyways. I'm just trying to place my skepticism of carbs onto you, and just have you like think about it a little bit and to experiment. That's all I'm asking with this video. It's like I'm not trying to demonize carbs or whatever, even though I don't think they're necessarily the best thing ever. Just think about it, right? That's my goal, is to make you think about it. So yeah. So here are the reasons why that I believe that they're low-key a scam, right? And the first thing is that they're pretty easy to overeat, and that they're addictive. So I forgot where I heard this, but I've heard that sugar in particular kind of lights up the same areas in your brain as other like harder drugs. And so you get like this hit of dopamine, and it makes you want to, like, you crave more, right? That's kind of my bro science interpretation of it. And I've experienced that personally, where I've eaten some sugary stuff, right? Whether that's whether that's like school lunch cafeteria food, right? Or even other forms of carbohydrates like rice, potatoes, even fruits. Those sorts of things I found myself overeating and being like almost sort of addicted to, because I remember whenever I used to eat carbs. It's been a while, but I still remember the feeling. I would eat something, right, that's rich in carbohydrates, whether that's rice or potatoes or fruit. I would eat those things, and this does include ultra processed food. I remember I would eat a cookie, right? Even if it was something that my mom would make, right? Like homemade, whatever. She'd make like these like chocolate chip cookies, right? Sugar, and yes, there is some fat in there as well. But I'd eat the cookie, and then like five like like 5 seconds later, the rest, like half of the cookie jar is just gone because I just like couldn't help myself, and so I would just feel sick after eating so many cookies. But the thing is that that didn't just apply to ultra processed food. It also applied to like the clean sources of like the clean carbs that people claim exists, like the potatoes, the fruit, the honey, that sort of thing. It's just like I find myself like just like gorging on pineapples and like bananas until I'd feel like just sick, or we'd run out of fruit. Basically, I just feel sick, and just like this like weird like gross feeling of like sugar in my stomach, like ugh. But I still had the compulsion to eat more. And something that I've learned is that whenever you eat carbohydrates, your leptin, which is, I think, the hormone that you get signaling from your stomach as well as your fat cells it's blocked. Like you don't, and it's a satiety hormone, I'm pretty sure. And whenever you don't get that signal, it basically tells you like, hey, have more food. You're starving, bro. Have more food. You're gonna die, have more food. And even though you're not, we live in a time of abundance where you can eat a whole pineapple and just like survive, right? You can eat a whole pineapple and there's more after that. In a time of abundance, like it's not a good thing to have satiety signals blocked, because then you just keep overeating, and that's exactly what happened to me. Is I would just overeat, and a part of that is because I didn't have, like, I guess the willpower to kind of like stop myself and be like, no, I've hit my calorie goal for the day. But I just don't think having that compulsion is like a healthy thing to have, in my opinion. I think it's kind of like a hijacking of our brain to tell us like, oh, you need to have more. Like this like weird, almost like drug-like compulsion to eat more. It just isn't a healthy thing, in my opinion. And so that's one of the reasons why that I think carbs are a scam, is because like you overeat them. And a vast majority of the ultra processed foods that like these big, I would say evil companies, honestly. I say these these big evil companies, the vast majority of their ultra processed foods have a ton of carbohydrates in them, a ton of sugar, a ton of like this like weird high fructose corn syrup, a bunch of weird stuff inside of it, right? That is carb based. And yet I will admit there are some of those like weird keto things, like the weird keto brownies, bro. Like what? Like what is like, if you think about it, right? And those brownies probably taste like sweet, but you gotta imagine like, okay, what are they putting in that for them to taste like sweet? It's probably some weird artificial sweetener, right? Like that's weird. But I think you get the point. It's like the vast majority of like the interior of the grocery store that has ultra processed food that is super easy to overeat is carbohydrates. And like you just got to think about that, like, okay, why is that the case? And for me, I believe that's because carbs are super easy to overeat. They're addictive, so you buy more of them, right? Getting scammed. Anyways, yeah. The next thing that I have written down here is whenever I quit carbs, is I also had these like crazy carb cravings. So about 9 months ago, right? So I started this ketogenic carnivore diet about like 8 months ago, like completely strict. But 9 months ago, I was still experimenting with it, and I was kind of adapting to it. So I remember for the first 2 weeks, I had these like crazy carb cravings where I would just want to eat like just super like sugary stuff for no reason, right? And I had enough willpower then to be like, no, I'm not gonna eat this stuff. But it was crazy, this like innate like drug withdrawal that I had almost to these sweets and to eating like sugary stuff like fruits and whatnot. My body was telling me like, I was like Gollum, dude, for Lord of the Rings. I was like, I need it. No, SpongeBob. That's the reference. I need it. It was like that, dude. It's like I would see, I don't know, like pineapple or some fruit or something, and I was like SpongeBob in that one episode where it was just like dehydrated face, like, I need it. Like, that's what my brain was telling me, dude. But I felt perfectly fine without it. Like after those 2 weeks, I was just like, okay, we're good. It was kind of like I literally went through like a drug withdrawal, dude, and that really opened my eyes to the addictiveness of carbohydrates. It was nuts. But I eventually got past that, and I'm glad I did. All right, so the next thing on why I think carbs are a scam is because people say that you need them to be an athlete, to have energy. They're your primary energy source. Dude, there's so many people that I've heard that. Like, dude, that's just regurgitating what you learned in fucking biology class in high school, dude. I had that. I've had biology class pretty recently, I'd say, and that's exactly what they say. Like, so just a little bit of context for me. I've had probably 3 biology classes in the past like 2 years or whatever, and they regurgitate the same thing over and over again. Carbs are your main energy source. Carbs are your main energy source. But they never talk about like the ketogenic state, which I just think is kind of funny. Was like you're never taught about that. Never, ever, ever. Like never in like no biology class that I've been in has covered a ketogenic metabolism. But it's another form of metabolism that I've learned, that you burn fat instead of carbohydrates. I just think it's kind of funny that whenever people regurgitate the same thing that they've learned, that I learned in like 7th grade, dude, or technically it was sophomore years whenever I had biology class, but they regurgitate the same thing over and over again, but they fail to look a little bit deeper into like metabolism, because there's more than one. But yeah. Anyways, people say that you need carbohydrates, but the truth is you actually don't. I've learned that while there is essential things that you need to have in your diet, so there's essential amino acids, there's essential minerals and vitamins, there's essential fatty acids, right, to build your brain, to build your muscles, to build your body, right, and then all the minerals and whatnot for all the functions. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Literally, there's no essential carbohydrate. And that's interesting, isn't it? How there's essential protein, there's essential fat, and there's essential vitamins and minerals, all of which you can get just without carbohydrates. Right? You literally do not need to eat carbohydrates to survive. And so it isn't necessarily like the best argument, because I was kind of thinking about this whenever I was scripting this video, like, oh, if they're not essential, then are they really necessary for you to thrive? And I don't think that's necessarily the best argument, but I just think it calls into question it definitely calls into question this advice of like, oh, you need carbohydrates. And I think that should add to your skepticism of carbohydrates, if you have any. I think it should add to the skepticism, because if there's no essential carbohydrate, do you really need them at all? I don't think you do. And so I just think it calls into question the modern diet that most people have of, eating like carbohydrates and, like protein and fat and whatnot. But I think it calls into question the idea of having carbs in your diet in the first place. At least that's my line of thinking. I could be thinking about some like logical fallacy, or thinking in some illogical way, but that's the way I think about it. It's like, if there's no essential carbohydrate, is it really, if we're not evolved to require it, then is it really necessary at all? So yeah. And the final thing that I have here for why I think carbs are a scam is because a lot of people, they claim that they'll improve your performance as an athlete, that you need carbohydrates to be an athlete. Otherwise, you are going to be slow and tired and blah. Like, you're going to suck. But I just point you to Dr. Sean Baker, right? He's this carnivore doctor dude, and this dude is freaking yoked, bro. And he posts some shorts on his YouTube channel sometimes of him just like doing the rower machine, and he is cooking, dude. That dude is absolutely massive and yoked, right? Like that's kind of, I get he might be an outlier because he is like this big, like massive yoked dude, but I think he has like a world record in rowing, or he's like close to it, something like that. but he's like a top performer, and he's like old. No offense to him, but he's like an older gentleman, right? And he doesn't eat any carbohydrates, right? That's one, right? I get that is one example, but on a personal level, for me, I've gotten better. Like I literally PR'd the other week. I PR'd in my event with not that much training, honestly, right? And I'm not gonna lay that at the feet of, oh, because I haven't had any carbohydrates. It's because I trained for it. Like, I think this idea of like, oh, you need carbohydrates to be an athlete is kind of BS. Like, just think about literally everything else that goes into being an athlete. Like the training, the sleeping, the intelligence, the game tape. There's so much crap that goes into being an athlete. Do you think just eating carbs is gonna make you a better athlete? Are you fucking retarded? I just gotta think about this, dude. There's so much stuff that goes into being an athlete. Do you think carbs is really the end all be all if you're gonna be a good athlete or not? Hell, are you stupid, dude? It's, in my opinion, the fuel system does not matter, okay? You can eat carbs and be a great athlete. You cannot eat carbs and be a great athlete. It doesn't matter. What matters is the work that you put in order to get the adaptation that you want, right? If you want to run more. If you want to run faster, do sprints, right? If you want to be stronger, lift weights, those sorts of things, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to eat carbs, I'm going to be an athlete. Oh, no, that's stupid, dude. And I get like, oh, it's going to improve your performance, but from what I understand, that's only if you're already eating carbohydrates, right? So it's kind of like a drug almost, in the sense where you need to have more, you need to have a higher dose to have a higher high, to have a higher effect, right? That sounds like a drug, doesn't it? At least to me, that sounds like literally like you need to take more drugs to do better. And even though carbohydrates aren't necessarily like a super negative thing, they aren't like steroids or whatever, it's just, to me, it doesn't seem right that you need to have more of something, that you need to have like more like carbohydrates in order to perform, especially whenever carbohydrates at a certain level can be toxic to you, can be like not healthy. Because think about it, like what happens to diabetics is like their blood sugar gets too high, and the blood sugar, it starts messing with them, like it starts killing them literally, because they can't manage the blood sugar. Like that's not a good thing. And so if you're having carbs constantly, you're just gonna mess up your metabolism. At least that's what I've learned, right? Anyways, I kind of got off track there, but my whole point here is like, I don't think that it's really necessary to improve performance. I think they're a scam, because they tell you like you need to have like these like gels and this like, I don't know, these like carb powders in order to perform at your highest. And maybe that's true if you're already eating carbohydrates. Okay, fine, right? If you're already eating carbohydrates and you need to perform, more carbs will probably do better for you. But if you cut out the carbs completely, or you go really low carbohydrate, more carb isn't actually going to help you. It's just like getting fat adapted is going to give you the same performance. It's going to give you the same effects, right? For me, the reason why I PR'd that last weekend, like I was saying, I don't lay it at the feet that I had zero carbs. It's because I trained for it, right? I didn't train as hard as I honestly could have, and I think the fuel system that I'm on allows me to recover better, but it's the work that I put in leading up to that. It's not, like because I didn't have any carbs. And in the past, whenever I was eating carbs, it's not because I ate the carbs that I became a better athlete. It's because I put in the work and I trained hard. Anyways, I kind of got derailed with that. I'm sorry, but I think you get the point there. It's like, I think they're a scam because they claim to improve performance, but that's only the case whenever you're already on carbohydrates. At least that's what I've experienced in my life and what I've heard. And so yeah, those are the reasons why that I think why I think carbs in general are a scam and why you probably shouldn't have them. With that being said, again with this video, I just wanted to place skepticism into you. And I'm kind of biased, and I think that everyone should at least try a ketogenic diet. But if you feel healthy eating carbs, like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I don't really care. I just want to place a skepticism onto you and to encourage you to experiment with yourself, because there's going to be those people out there who say, oh, show me the studies. Like, as good as a study is, right? Like, that's cool for research purposes and to see, like, oh, maybe I should try this thing. But the ultimate experiment that truly matters is the experiment of your own life, right? Like, you can sacrifice a week or a couple weeks just to experiment and to see how you feel, right? I don't think it really costs you that much to really experiment or to learn from what other people do and to see how they did it and see, like, okay, well, maybe I should try it. Because you can't really knock it until you try it, right? I'm being completely honest. Like, I've done the carb thing. It doesn't really work for me. And so I'm on the keto diet, and it works for me now. And so that's why I think carbs are a scam, right? But I would just encourage you to try it out, right? Try low carb, zero carb for a little bit to see how you feel. And if you don't like it, whatever, right? Maybe you'll end up agreeing with me and you'll stay on it. Or maybe you won't agree with me and you'll think I'm crazy. Either way, it doesn't matter. Like, what I want to encourage is self-experimentation, not some like weird indoctrination into some dogmatic viewpoint of life. I think that's the biggest problem that we have in like this like I guess diet space or whatever, is this like dogmatic sticking to wherever you live in. Like, I don't care if you eat whatever, right? Like, I don't really care, right? What I care is that you're experimenting and you're actively seeking towards getting to your best health, whatever that may be for you, right? Like, I believe in a certain set of things, but over all of that, I encourage self-experimentation, and that's what I plan to do with the majority of my life, is experimentation, even if it's in segments of like a year or like 6 months or whatever. I really encourage, I think self-experimentation is the most important thing, to be honest. So anyways, that's kind of my my uniting rant at the end of this video. But yeah, if you like this video and you like my message, then I would really appreciate if you would go subscribe, because that's the best way you can support me and let me know that I'm doing a good job. It's just continuing to, watch these videos and support, either commenting or subscribing, that sort of thing. That's the best way you can support me right now, and I'd really appreciate it if you did. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.